Dr. Joel Fuhrman is a board-certified physician whose groundbreaking work has been acclaimed as a medical breakthrough for weight loss, disease reversal, and prevention.
The American diet today has 62% of calories from processed foods. How many of you would like a promise that you don't have to have a heart attack when you get older?
He's a New York Times best-selling author and a widely published nutritional researcher.
And I see people putting this into practice every day, transforming their lives. Never forget that your health is your greatest wealth.
Join Dr. Joel Fuhrman now and learn the 3 steps to incredible health.
Welcome to Eating for Incredible Health. I'm Dr. Fuhrman, and today we're talking about making recipes, cooking, making salads, soups, sorbets, smoothies, all the things that begin with S. How to menu plan, how to make food, healthy food taste great, and give you a feel for some of the typical recipes we make and how to make the healthiest foods on the planet taste great. All right? So let's get started. This is all about eating the foods that have the highest level of micronutrients in them and the highest level of those superfoods that have those super nutrients that protect cancer. Things like mushrooms and onions. And we're going to show you some of these superfoods and how to get them into your diet. So the secret here, the fountain of youth, is to eat high nutrient foods. Don't overeat. Eat till you feel you had enough. Wait till you're hungry again. We want to pick and we want to design a diet so there's no deficiencies. You have all the nutrients you need. And of course, we're hoping that when you eat all the healthy foods you're supposed to be eating, that you won't you'll lose your cravings and desire for unhealthy foods that will sabotage your health. So the goal for incredible health are to eat a lot of vegetables, a pound of raw vegetables a day. Now, a pound of vegetables a day, yikes, that seems like a lot, but don't forget, a tomato could weigh half a pound, right? I remember when my daughter, Cara, was 5 years old, she used to eat one box of frozen broccoli every day for lunch. It's 10 ounces of food. If a 5-year-old could eat 10 ounces of broccoli, why can't you eat a pound of green vegetables a day, right? It's not that incredibly hard to do. And a pound of vegetables a day is only like 100 calories. And maybe eat beans every day. Try to eat at least half a cup of beans every day, even a cup. Eat at least 1 serving of nuts and seeds a day, maybe 1 or 2 ounces. And if you're physically active and need the extra calories, eat more than 2 ounces. And eat about a pound of fruit a day. Eat at least 2 or 3 pieces of fruit a day every day. Now, what do you think I would say is the most important recipe you could learn? What do you think? I'll tell you, salad dressings. Because raw vegetables are the most powerful, important food to reverse and prevent all kinds of diseases. I want you to write on your refrigerator and put a big sign up, the salad is the main dish. I want a nice big salad of raw vegetables every day. Put carrots in there, put beets, arugula, different types of lettuces, shredded onion. Also you could throw kiwis and strawberries and tomatoes and all kinds of sun-dried tomatoes. You could soak and soften and put them in the salad. They're delicious. All kinds of things to make great salads. Use interesting greens and put creative toppings on your salad. Things like toasted sesame seeds, maybe things like berries in your salad, like blueberries or strawberries or raspberries in your salad. What I like to do is I like to slice up a ripe plantain and put banana in the salad. I use a plantain banana because it has more substance, and when you mix it up, it still stays whole in pieces. It doesn't melt away into the dressing. So there's all kinds of things we can do to make the salads taste great. So think about this for a minute, because I want to make a salad dressing, and I want the fatty portion of the dressing, instead of being oil, is going to come from nuts or seeds. So some of the salad dressings may, have vinegar in them, or lemon, or some kind of spice in them, something like, a pomegranate vinegar or Dijon mustard, something to make it taste interesting. But it'll also have in it something with fat, like an avocado, or a seed like pumpkin seeds or toasted pumpkin seeds, or cashew butter or almond butter, or cashews or almonds. So a lot of times when I'm in a rush to make a salad dressing, I don't have the equipment, I may take some almond butter with a fork and take a low-salt tomato sauce and some almond butter and whip it together in about 30 seconds. I'll put a little maybe balsamic vinegar or fig vinegar in it. I use that dark black vinegar, like a fig or balsamic vinegar, to mix with a tomato base. If I have time, I'll usually use almonds and put it in the blender, and we make a hefty amount of dressing. We make the dressings because we want to have enough left over for a few days. I don't want to be cooking in the kitchen every night. So I'll make a big salad, and I'll often make enough salad, so I'll even have leftover salad. I can pack it up and use it for the next day for lunch. So now let's review this one more time, how to make a salad dressing. Because I put something to add flavor. It may be roasted garlic. It may be Dijon mustard. It may be scallions or red onion. It may be some dried herbs and spices, right? So we may be putting some of these. It may be something like nutritional yeast that adds like a cheesy effect in the salad, like making a Caesar dressing with nutritional yeast and hemp milk and roasted garlic and some cashews blended together makes a great Caesar dressing. But so I'll pick a flavor, then I'll pick a fat, and the fat will be something like sesame seeds, lightly toasted, or use the whole sesame seed raw. And when you use the whole sesame seed raw with the shell intact, it's the highest calcium-containing food in the world. So it's a very rich source of calcium and lignins and fibers. It's a superfood. So a lot of times I'm trying to consciously make salad dressings and adding seeds into it, like hemp seeds, sesame seeds, toasted pumpkin seeds, or sprinkle some toasted pumpkin seeds in your salad. And then I'm mixing it with something acidic, maybe lemon or vinegar, maybe mixing something to liquefy it a little bit, which may be something like a tomato base, or it could be something like a little bit of vinegar, or a little bit of red wine, or a little bit of grape juice, or a little bit of currants or raisins I might put in there. I might put something to sweeten it. I might want to mix. I might want to balance that tart sourness of a vinegar, like a balsamic vinegar, with a little bit of a grape or a currant, like using some raisins, to mix in the dressing together with some of the almonds and sunflower seeds to make a great dressing. All right, you see how I'm picking like one from column A and one from column B to make a delicious tasting salad dressing. So let me go through some of my basic salad dressings. One of my favorite dressings is the orange sesame dressing, which is basically just orange, a peeled orange blended with cashews and sesame seeds. And then I'll add blood orange vinegar and lemon juice to it. Another variant of that dressing is to maybe use an orange peanut dressing. You take the raw cashews, you blend it in, and you add a little peanut or peanut butter to it to give it a peanut flavor, right? And you can still add a little ginger to that. Add some ginger or garlic. Garlic and ginger mixed together in with the peanut flavor gives it a nice Thai, a nice Thai Oriental flavor that really tastes good together. And think about this, when you're using a fruity dressing, a cherry dressing, a blueberry dressing, a strawberry dressing, very easy to make. You just take either fresh or frozen berries and you mix it in with vinegar. You can use blueberry vinegar or pear vinegar or rice vinegar or wine vinegar, but use a light vinegar, put the fruit in, and then you add a little bit of nut in there now too. We'll usually use maybe something like a simple food like almonds or cashews, mixed with some seed, like a sunflower seed or a sesame seed. So in this case, we're making the blueberry dressing with cashews, because cashews have a very smooth, creamy flavor and don't add a lot of extra new taste to the dressing. And very often I'm trying to incorporate superfoods like pomegranate. So I'll be making like a blueberry pomegranate dressing. Maybe I'll take the blueberries and blend them in with a little pomegranate juice, and then add some nuts into that. Or the typical Russian dressing people like to eat, which is a tomato-based dressing. And my take of that, my little twisting of that dressing, is I like to add the garlic and the roasted garlic and the shredded onion or scallion, or even sun-dried tomatoes. I'll buy those unsalted sun-dried tomatoes, and I'll open the bag up, and I'll put a little water in the bag, and I'll seal the top of the bag and put it back in the refrigerator. So the sun-dried tomatoes are soaking in water. And you can get them sun-dried that have no oil and no salt in them. There's no ingredients other than tomatoes. But when you put a little water in the bag and let them sit overnight, they soften. So you could blend them smoothly into the dressing, or you can just cut them up with a little kitchen shears or a knife, and you could sprinkle them on your salad. Sun-dried tomatoes and garlic are so delicious that you can use sun-dried tomatoes and garlic paste as the sole dressing. Green vegetables taste great just with garlic and sun-dried tomatoes, a little shredded red onion. I'll take the piece of the clove of garlic and I'll cut the whole bottom of the clove off. In other words, I'll cut the area with a little bit of root sticking out, and then I'll roast that in a little toaster oven, maybe for just 10 minutes. enough so you can squeeze it. Without having to peel the garlic, I can squeeze those whole 8 cloves together in one shot, and I can squeeze it out like toothpaste coming out. And you take that little creamed garlic, and I can mash it with a fork, mix it with the chopped sun-dried tomatoes, and then take a piece of lettuce and butter it on a piece of lettuce, make lettuce roll-ups, right? You could make a chopped relish. Those are all great ways we can eat healthy vegetables. So here's a blueberry dressing, like I was mentioning before, that has frozen blueberries with sesame seeds and sunflower seeds and pomegranate juice with the blueberry vinegar. Very delicious. And the blueberries, once you put that kind of berry dressing on your salad, you have an infinite number of possibilities to add fruit in with the salad as well. You can cut up a plantain banana in there, for example. Or you could have, you could have little pieces of fruits that are in season, little pieces of chopped apple. And one of my nice favorite things to do on a salad is to make like an apple pie salad. You take apples and cinnamon, and you take chopped apples and cinnamon, and you mix that with flax seeds or with walnuts right into the salad. It tastes great together to make an apple pie salad. So we talked about this cashew orange dressing. We talked about making some dips, like a hummus dip. And often we'll roast an eggplant in the oven whole. Don't cut it up, just put it in the oven whole and roast it. And then when it's cooled off and cooked, and it's shriveled up, cut it in half, scoop out the eggplant, put it in the blender with the sesame seeds, a little bit of chickpeas, of course, scallions, the roasted garlic. We'll usually make the eggplant hummus with a little bit of roasted garlic and 1 clove of raw garlic to give it more flavor, maybe a little shredded horseradish in there, a little bit of squeeze of lemon. The mixing of the eggplant in the hummus recipe reduces the calories and makes it more a low-calorie food, so you can eat it more liberally. You don't have to eat little tiny pieces of it. You can eat a lot of it. You can eat a lot of onion and garlic and scallion and things like that. Eat all you want, right? A bean salsa is also great to use. So the salsa means a spicy tomato base. And you can either whip the beans up to make it creamy, or you could get those small azuki beans, they're the little red beans, and leave them lumpy in the salsa. That's a good way to do it too. So salsa is easy to make. You usually do it with peppers and tomatoes and scallions, and you can lightly steam or lightly roast or lightly braise in a saucepan. You could like fry it, but you're frying it water. When you fry things in water, it's called water sautéing. You slice it up with a little bit of water in the pan. You could even have water in a spray bottle, adding water as you need to, just to make the onion start to glisten. And then you can mix the onion. You can actually mix the cooked onions with the tomato. And you throw in a little bit of almond butter, a little bit of vinegar. I love to put the fruity vinegar in, like the fig vinegar, into the salsa. And of course, the tomato paste, things like parsley, oregano, a little chili powder, the red kidney beans, but I, of course, prefer the azuki beans, which are like those baby chili beans. And part of the bean you could blend into the salsa base, and part of the bean you could leave chopped or whole to eat in lumpy. And a lot of times to take a piece of celery, snow pea pods, raw broccoli, raw cauliflower, raw artichokes, whatever, and use this chili paste or the eggplant hummus as a dip, and eat raw vegetables with a dip. Because maybe for lunch you might have had a salad with some cooked vegetable dish, and for dinner, instead of having another salad, you're just having some raw vegetables that are with some nice dip. More dressings and dip, and one of the most favorite on our website with the best ratings, the dressing, is they love this healthy Caesar dressing, which is made pretty simply with roasted garlic and either soy or hemp or almond milk, and cashews and lemon juice and nutritional yeast and Dijon mustard, right? And of course little spices, Mrs. Dash or black pepper to your taste. And you make a delicious dressing that's healthy dressings, right? Let's go on to soups now, okay? Because soups are a great way to make vegetables cooked, because you don't overcook the food in soup because you're cooking it on such a water base, and the water prevents the burning. You don't want to eat foods that are browned or darkened, because that's indicative of acrylamides and other toxic compounds forming. When you cook things in a water base, like when you steam a vegetable like broccoli in a steamer or artichokes in a steamer, you can overcook it. So the water turns so green, you're looking at that green water and you've lost a lot of nutrients now in the water. When you cook something in a soup, you recognize that any of those nutrients that left the vegetables are now in the water that you're consuming anyway. In other words, soups are a great way to eat vegetables. And when in my house, we make a big pot of soup on the weekend. Here's what we do. We make this big pot of soup, and we put it, we eat the soup that night. And then the rest of the leftover in the pot, we put the whole big pot right in the refrigerator. this whole giant pot right in the refrigerator. So it gets cool, so the next morning it's a cold pot of soup. And while it's cold, it's easier to transfer it very quickly into various containers. So from the big pot now, we're aliquoting it out into like 10 different containers. So each of us can just grab a container to go to work or to go to school, right? So convenient. And since beans are such important healthy foods, and such greens and onions and mushrooms are healthy foods, we want you to add those foods to the soup too. Often I'll use a Vitamix or a high-powered blender where I'll blend the ingredients and then puree them so they're pureed or blended and then pour them into the soup. Let me go over with you how I cook a soup, okay? Let me just review this for you. I'm in my kitchen now, and the first thing I do in the kitchen when I'm making a soup is I put water in the pot. Because the beans take the longest to cook, and I want the beans to start cooking first. I could have used beans that were soaked, or I could take beans that were not soaked. It'll take a little longer. Either way is fine. So I'll take a couple of cups of beans, maybe the Azuki beans, maybe red kidney beans, maybe it be lentils, maybe split peas, whatever beans, or maybe a mixture of beans. Maybe I'll use some barley. Maybe I'll use some black wild rice in the soup. I'll take my grains and my beans, and I'll put the water in. I'll usually put 2 quarts of water in a pot, and I'll throw in my 2 cups of beans. I'll put it up on a low flame, and I'll cover it. That's the first thing I do at the very start, right? Next thing I do is I take out my juicer, and I'm going to make a soup base, a vegetable base. Either I'm going to use a prepared soup base that's like vegetable juice or some type of broth, but more often than not, I choose to use fresh vegetable juice because that gives the soup the best flavor. So I'll take a 5-pound bag of carrots, usually a 5-pound bag of organic carrots, and I'll put the 5-pound bag of organic carrots right through my juicer. If you're using a centrifugal juicer, the round juicer, the pulp may come out a little damp, so I'll take the pulp and form it into a ball and push it through the juicer a second time so I get all the juice out of the carrots. If you're using the Orger type juicer, then the pulp is very dry. You don't have to do that, of course. So I'll usually get about 1.5 quarts of carrot juice out of my 5 pounds of carrots, and I'll dump that right into the bowl with the water and then close it back the pot, and that's cooking. Now what I do, my beans are cooking, my soup is cooking, my stuff is juiced. Now I clean my space, I clean the juicer, and I put it away. The next thing I do is I add my kale, my onions, my mushrooms, my other vegetables to the soup. So what I'll do is I'll take the onions and the kale, and since we know that onions contain an enzyme called allanase, and the allanase catalyzes a reaction to form anti-cancer compounds, we don't want to put the onion into the soup whole. We want to chop it up first. Likewise, the kale contains an enzyme called myrosinase. Kale is like one of the kale, collards, bok choy, cabbages. These are superfoods with powerful anti-cancer effects. You want to get them in your soup. So what I do is, because it's a soup, I won't strip the kale. Normally, if I'm making cream kale or just kale for a vegetable, I'll take my hand and I'll strip the kale right off the stem, and I'll throw the stem away. See, I'll strip the kale right off the stem and throw the stem away. But when I'm making soup, it's all going to be blended in there. I might as well put the stem and all in there. I'll use the whole kale. I might cut the bottom of the stem off, but I'll use the whole thing. Now, when I take the onion, I want to chop it up first. So what I do is, I might chop onions for salad. I might chop onions for use in vegetable dishes and other and I'll cut the bottom of the onion, the root part, off first, and face the root away from you when you cut it, because that's where the stink will come out. You don't want to make yourself tear. So when you cut the onion, first cut the base of the onion off, and you're going to throw that away. All right, keeping it away from you. Then what I usually do is I cut the top off and I make a score on the onion going down. So now I can take off that one shell of skin off the onion from where I did that score on the edge. So here I'll just take that off. And now I have a whole onion without a skin, okay? So here's my whole onion with no skin. Now, if I'm going to cut up this shredded onion for a salad, I'll cut the onion in half, lay it flat so it's stable, and then in the rocker motion with my knife, I can use my fingers pointed down so I don't cut myself to guide my knife down to make very, very thin slices of the onion. So now I want very, very thin slices, and you want to use a sharp knife, and then because you want to use very small, very thin pieces of onion in your salad because you want to open up those cells. And so let's say I slice that onion, I can rocker down and cut the onion up, and very easily here, I can have my onion in very, very tiny pieces, not those big lumps in your salad that you're chewing this taste, but you can spread the flavor of the onion better through the salad when it's chopped very finely. And the point I'm making here is when you chop the onion very finely, it releases more of those gases, and it's forming more of those anti-cancer compounds. So now you have it's healthier for you. You're getting more of the nutrients out of the onion because you chopped it up smaller. And you can also chew it better. So add a lot of delicious onion flavor to your salad. But when I'm making the soup, I'm going to take my onion and I'm going to leave it in big chunks. I'm going to leave it in big chunks because I want to puree it, and there's no point wasting my chopping and cutting. I'll take my kale. I can have that in big chunks too. I can put my kale either partially chopped or torn apart right into the blender. I'll put it right into my Vitamix or my other high-powered blender. I'll throw in the onion just like this, right into the blender. I'll open my pot of soup, ladle a little bit of liquid out, not too much, a little bit of liquid out to put that in the blender as well, and I'll turn the blender on. Now I creamed the green vegetables and the onion together into this puree, and now I pour this liquid, back into the soup again, all right? I may have to do 2 batches of it to pour it into the soup each time. So now I've finished. I added all my you want to add, and if you have using leeks in your soup or scallions, you want to do the same thing because you want those foods completely pureed while they're raw. Do you remember why we're pureeing them when with the raw? Because we're releasing all the compounds, all the anti-cancer compounds. If we cooked them first and then we chopped them or blended them up, you wouldn't get as much of those nutrients. Mushrooms, of course, are a super anti-cancer food, but they don't have to be chopped up any special way. And of course, they're soft and easy to cut. So we usually just cut the very base of the onion off, and then cut the onion in half, like an onion, but of course this is a mushroom. And then you're going to slice the mushroom down, and then cut it in little bite-sized pieces. Or you could use an automatic chopper. And then we'll have this mushroom chopped up in little bite-sized pieces to throw in the soup. But you want to cook the mushroom. You want to eat the mushrooms and cook, because when you cook the mushroom, it dissipates some of those toxins that are naturally in mushrooms. And you don't hurt the anti-cancer properties in mushrooms because the aromatase inhibitors and the angiogenesis inhibitors are in the mushrooms and are not destroyed by heat. So we want to eat cooked mushrooms every day. And you know those studies we talked about that showed that mushrooms were so protective against breast cancer in particular? That was based on women eating about this much mushroom a day, about 10 grams of mushroom per day. It's not that much mushrooms. And I recommend you eat more than this. You don't have to limit it to this amount. You might get even more protection against cancer by eating more mushrooms than that. So eat mushrooms liberally. And there's all variety of different types of mushrooms that add delicious and exotic flavors to the soups you made. So cut up mushrooms, throw lots of them, and eat them mostly cooked in soups and stews. And it adds a dramatic enhanced flavor and texture to your soups and your stews. Let me give you an example of a soup recipe. This is a soup recipe we call the anti-cancer soup. And the reason it's called an anti-cancer soup is because it has leeks and onions and shallots and garlic, all those anti-cancer alum family, right? Split peas and beans we can throw in there. And of course, it's in a vegetable juice base. So the vegetable juice is usually carrot juice or tomato juice or celery juice. In this case, we're mixing together carrot juice and celery juice because the celery juice gives it a little bit of a natural salty flavor without adding salt. Tastes really fantastic. And another secret is when we blend up the soup, we add a little bit of cashew nuts that have been creamed into the soup to give it that creamy mouthfeel. And you're using those shiitake mushrooms that are a little bit tough. The shiitake mushrooms are the ones with that black stem, and you just cut the bottom part of the black stem off. The rest of the stem you cut up and put in the soup. It adds a nice, crunchy, firm feel in the soup to make it like a tough, chewy feel in the soup. Very, very delicious. Also, consider the fact that soups are a great breakfast food. Here's a fantastic recipe. We call it the winter breakfast soup, especially in the wintertime. It's made with a butternut squash, 2 apples, right? And then we use, kale, chopped onion, pomegranate vinegar, carrot juice, a little bit of hemp milk, right? The raw cashews or cashew butter, cinnamon and nutmeg. So the secret here is the apples, cinnamon, and nutmeg with the cashews give it a nice breakfast fruity, cinnamony flavor, like apple pie flavor, mixed in with the butternut squash, a little bit of the soy milk or the hemp milk, makes an incredibly delicious winter breakfast soup. So to review, we're enhancing flavor of soups and stews by using things like garlic, tomatoes, sun-dried tomatoes, dried fruits. I might have a little bit of, I might put prunes in a soup or a stew. I might soak dried peaches or dried nectarines. I might soak them in water and then get them and chop them up or blend them into a soup base to give them flavor. We may toast nuts and seeds, toast almonds lightly, or toast sesame seeds to give it more flavor and blend them into the soup or the stew. We use dried onions and fresh onions and dried mushrooms and fresh mushrooms. We use herbs and spices, both dried and fresh. Think about fresh herbs in your cooking. Add fresh dill to a soup. I love a soup with fresh cut up dill in it. Fresh parsley, fresh basil, fresh oregano. We're talking about using the, you ever have like just use red onion raw with dill chopped up fine. Put on, for example, squash, or rolled on, a piece of roasted potato. It's delicious, And nutritional yeast is a great nutritional seasoning to sprinkle nutritional yeast to give things a nice cheesy flavor. Sometimes going to the movies, make an air pop popcorn, right, with just nothing on it, and I'll take a spray bottle. Maybe I'll put, a little drop of olive oil in the bottle, but mostly fill it with water to just moisten the popcorn a little bit with this, 3/4 water, 1/4 of olive oil that was shaken up really well, and then sprinkle nutritional yeast on, because a little moisture in the popcorn make the nutritional yeast stick to the popcorn, and the kids love that as a treat. And don't forget the gourmet vinegars. Fig vinegar, pear vinegar, raisin vinegar, right? The orange vinegar is fantastic. Make all types of gourmet vinegars that are great to make. You can add vinegars into the soup even. Use a little fig vinegar mixed in the soup, or apple or orange vinegar to the soup. And you can even add oranges to the soup too. All types of ways you can enhance flavor. Now we talked a little about salsas, and another way to make a stew is make a chili, right? Because a chili is like a salsa. It's usually red, and usually we make it with some tofu and beans mixed together. And of course, we're using things like onions and garlic and peppers and chili powder and beans mixed together. And so don't forget, chili is a superfood, and usually we're mixing together the onion, the garlic, and the tomato with the beans, with a little chopped tofu or shredded tofu. A lot of times if you want the tofu to come out to taste like chicken, more chewy, what you do is you take that extra firm tofu and you freeze it. And you freeze it, it makes it into a hard block. And then you take it out of the freezer, and now you chop it. And when it chops it up for the put in as defrost, it becomes more tough and more shreddy-like, and it separates that tough shreddiness throughout the chili and makes a nice mouth texture and feel. I want you to have steamed green vegetables every night for dinner. I want there always to be artichokes, asparagus, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, collards, right? String beans, zucchini, made with mushrooms and onions at night. I love to eat artichokes. I eat so much artichokes because artichokes is a vegetable that tastes so good with even nothing on it. You could make a delicious dip for it, but it tastes great just plain. It's such a flavorful vegetable. The way I prepare it is I'll take the stem, and usually, peel those little baby leaves off the stem, and then we'll just cut the bottom of the stem off. The reason I just took the bottom of the stem off is because I want to eat the whole rest of the stem, because the stem is delicious on an artichoke. Now, I don't want the artichoke to take so long to cook. So what I'll do is I'll slice the artichoke right up the center. It'll make it cook much faster. So let me show you this. I'm going to cut this artichoke right through the center of the artichoke, revealing the choke, okay? Now, that's the choke part. You notice there's this fuzzy peach-like material right there that's not edible. We want to cut that out. If we cut out that center, it'll make it cook much faster. So I'm going to take a small knife, and right along the edge of the choke, I'm going to cut deeply into the artichoke. So watch this. I'm going to cut that knife right along the edge of the choke. And then those little small plastic leaves in the center, I'm going to remove. So I remove that small part. You have to cut deeper than you think. You always cut a little, because I didn't get it all out. So likewise, cut nice and deep so so it pops right out. So that little bottom of the choke is now popped out, and I threw that away, the fuzzy part. But now I have the piece beneath it that's all edible. This part of the stem is all delicious and edible. So now when I steam this piece, now it'll steam pretty quickly, and it's done when the leaf can pull away. You notice if I pick up the artichoke or pull against it, it's hard to pull off. When the artichoke is done, these leaves come off effortlessly. And the bottom of the leaf here is all edible. So I can take a knife, not a sharp knife or the back of a sharp knife, and I could take these leaves and I can pull the artichoke. I can pull it. If this was a butter knife or a dull knife, I'd be able to pull it and scrape the edible part right off that and make a pile of these edible leaves right in the artichoke. And of course, as we get some of these outer leaves off and eat them, right, this choke part right here, this center of the artichoke is the delicacy, is all edible. Right? This whole part is edible. This tart we scraped off with the leaves. A lot of people put it right in their mouth and use their teeth to scrape off the edible part. And then these smaller leaves, the whole bottom piece of these leaves are edible, as this whole leaf is edible. As the leaf gets tougher, the top part here, the top part of this leaf can be cut off, is not edible. But a lot of it is, and you can feel that it's soft, how much of it you can eat. I'll often chew up this whole part of the artichoke right through all the leaves. So artichokes taste so good, it's amazing how they fill you up. You can eat like 2 of these artichokes, you feel full already, right? And you didn't take in many calories. They're great for dieters, and they taste so good with nothing on them, so you could just, and I'll take the cold, I'll always make a lot of artichokes. I'll cut a lot of these in half, and maybe I'll take 6 artichokes, so I'll have 12 halves. And maybe that night, I'll eat 3 or 4 halves. But I'll have 3 or 4 left over the next day that I can pack together in a plastic bag and take with me to lunch the next day, and I'll eat them cold the next day. Cold artichokes already cooked. So it's a great food, and if you want to taste a really gourmet recipe, we make a really delicious artichoke, an artichoke bean loaf. Like a meatloaf, but it's made with artichokes and beans. It tastes fantastic. Okay, now since you want to eat green vegetables every night, I also want you to eat kale. And kale, one of the dishes I mentioned earlier that my children, my family loves to eat is cream kale. We just mix the kale with a cream sauce. So in this case, I strip the kale off the leaves, off the stems, excuse me, strip the kale. And now, once it's stripped, I put it in the pot to steam. And we only steam it till the dull green color becomes a darker green glisten, not so it's so overcooked. And then the kale compacts itself. So now it's steamed, it's come out of the steamer, right? Only for like 5 to 7 minutes. And now I put the kale cooked on a dish towel, push the dish towel over it so it's dried out. And now I put the chopped kale into a wooden chopping bowl with a chopper. And now I hand chop it a little bit in the chopping bowl, all right? I'll sometimes lay the dish towel right in the chopping bowl, put the wet kale right on top of it, fold the dish towel over it, flip it upside down, and take the towel off, so and squeeze it a little bit, get a lot of the extra water off the kale. And then I'll chop it in the chopping bowl, and then I'll get it partially chopped, and then I'll take my high-powered blender, and I'll make a cream sauce for it. I'll mix in the blender maybe like a Caesar dressing, right? With the nutritional yeast and the cashews and the roasted garlic, and make a nice dressing for the kale. My kids like it so simple. They just like the cashews and the soy milk mixed together. And sometimes I'll put a little veggie zest or a little bit of a nutritional yeast or a spice powder on it. And then we'll take the kale that's in the chopping bowl, and I'll add that cup of cream sauce right on top. And I'll chop it, mixing the chopped kale in with the cream sauce, and I'll store it in the refrigerator like that. And we'll eat it that night for dinner. Always make enough for leftovers so we can have it the following night. That's the key here. You don't want to cook every night. In my house, we cook like we want to cook on Wednesday nights and maybe cook on Sundays and prepare food for the whole week. That's the secret here. The secret here is you want to exercise maybe on Tuesday and Thursday nights. You don't want to be cooking every night of the week. So it usually takes about 2 shopping days. You shop a big shop on the weekend, buying all the things you need for the week, and maybe a small shop just to pick some extras up, just to pick some lettuce or pick some things you ran out of usually during the week, and try to consolidate your cooking so when you're eating every night, most of the time you're eating leftovers, so you're not occupying so much of your life with spending time in the kitchen. Here's a recipe for a quinoa, a nut loaf, where you're mixing parsley, red peppers, filberts, seasonings with some quinoa, which is a grain. You can do this with a wild rice, with quinoa, with oats, and we can make a mushroom nut oat loaf. There's a whole bunch of variations on making loaves that could be sliced and made as a main dish. Another delicious dish is cauliflower spinach mashed potatoes, because they're not mashed potatoes. Cauliflower is much healthier than mashed potatoes. But when you cook cauliflower and mix it with garlic and a little cashew butter, it tastes fantastic. It tastes better than mashed potatoes. And the cauliflower is a cruciferous vegetable. It has all those anti-cancer properties. let's move on to smoothies, right? Because smoothies are really can be like, we can use a high-powered blender, and it's a great way to eat more green vegetables because we can make a fruit smoothie with greens in it. And we can hide the greens in with the fruit, and the fruit gives it a great flavor. And you know how I use smoothies? I do it when I'm in a rush. Because a lot of times I had a couple of hours off or an hour off from work, and I rush to the gym. I want to get back to work again, and I have to eat. And so don't have a 20-minute period or a half-hour period because I wasted the time or I used that time to exercise, and I could just drink the smoothie when I'm driving the car in 5 minutes, or I could take it with me and sip it while I'm working or something. So I'll take some kale or take some spinach or take some lettuce or take a whole head of lettuce, and I'll push it right into the blender with a peeled orange, with a box of frozen blueberries, with a half a banana, with a handful of flax seeds, with some cinnamon, with some nutmeg, whatever I want to flavor the smoothie with. And I'll make a smooth, creamy drink that tastes delicious, and is like a whole meal. Because when you're in a rush and can't get to a whole meal. All right? That's a great way to get more green vegetables into your diet. So think about this. The liquid, you don't have to use a liquid because the liquid could come from an orange that you peeled, right? The liquid can come from something else that adds a creaminess to the smoothie. But you can add a little bit of juice or a little bit of, a natural milk, like a hemp milk or an almond milk or an oat milk or a soy milk. But usually we try to make simple milks at home. Like you can make a delicious almond milk because when you buy almond milk, most of the time it has too much salt added. You can throw a little piece of vanilla in there, a couple of dates, a handful of almonds, a little bit of hemp seeds, and throw water in there, and you have a simple milk that you made in a flash at home that's very inexpensive and tastes great. I think when you make those fresh milks yourself by blending and whipping them up in the blender with a high-powered blender, I think they taste better too than the ones you buy in the store. But in any case, use your juicer, use fresh fruit, throw something into a blender. Just use oranges and apples and grapes and whatever's in season, mango, right? A box of frozen cherries, some cut up fresh pineapple, right? Some kiwis. A great dressing is to mix kiwi and orange together or kiwi and pineapple together. Pineapple kiwi, pineapple orange, great in a blender. You can throw in things for flavor and for health like goji berries or a handful of nuts or nutmeg or spices or cinnamon, right? And then you throw in greens because the real purpose of the smoothie is to get you to eat more greens. So let's go over some smoothie recipes now, okay? Let's just review. Here's a chocolate smoothie, for example, where we threw in 2 to 3 ounces of spinach and 2 to 3 ounces of lettuce. We prefer not to use all spinach because spinach has oxalic acid in it. And the other green vegetables like lettuce and kale and collards are not high in oxalic acid. Oxalic acid binds calcium, so it makes most of the calcium in spinach not available. Now don't think that I don't want you to eat spinach. Spinach is still a very healthy food I want you to eat, but I don't want spinach to be the major source of green vegetable in your diet. I want you to have a variety of greens, and spinach could be one of that variety. It doesn't strip the calcium away from other foods, but it does prevent most of the calcium from coming in from the spinach itself. So we don't want you to just be putting nothing but spinach in. So in this case, I'm mixing lettuce and spinach together works great in these smoothies. And then you put in the cocoa powder, a little pomegranate juice, some berries, either fresh or frozen, right? Maybe a date to sweeten it, or some flax seeds or hemp seeds, and whip it up. And in this chocolate smoothie, with the pomegranate and the berries and the date and the cocoa powder, you don't even notice there's any greens in it. It just tastes fantastic. And you don't want to make it overly sweet. A nice smoothie is the blueberry orange smoothie, which uses fresh or frozen blueberries. Again, flax seeds. You can put apple in it or oranges into it, and you put and of course the blueberries, and the mixture of lettuce and spinach. And a lot of people, a very common way to make smoothies is make banana smoothie. I like to make a smoothie with a piece of avocado, give it and banana in it, and add the green vegetables, add the lettuce and the spinach to it. It tastes fantastic. All right, a lot of people like fruit smoothie, and if you're having a dinner party, take some fresh cantaloupe with ice cubes and take a cup of ice for every half cantaloupe and a date, and whip it up and make a cantaloupe slush, we call it. That's a great party drink, to just mix melon with ice and a date, right? But in this case, we're making a fruit and berry smoothie that takes a little pomegranate juice as the base, with a little almond milk or hemp milk to make it smooth and creamy, and then you're going to add peaches, and blueberries and strawberries, whipping it up with the seeds, making a delicious thick fruit and creamy smoothie. We use the same principles to make ice creams and sorbets. Now, let me give you a couple of my favorite recipes for ice creams and sorbets. But basically what I do is I mix something that's not frozen with something that's frozen. So I'll take maybe frozen bananas with a little bit of hemp milk and vanilla, maybe a few fresh figs and make a banana fig ice cream. Maybe I'll take some pineapple and that's not frozen, and I'll mix it in the blender and whip it up with frozen strawberries. And I'll make a creamy, gelled, like creamy frozen dessert. It's delicious together. Any kind of frozen fruit. Just plain whipped up frozen bananas is great. Just popping frozen grapes are great. You know, frozen fruit. But sometimes you want to mix the stuff, you want to mix the fruit that's a little bit defrosted and thawed with something frozen. It comes out even better, creamy and smooth. So let's think about this for a minute. You can use a little bit of juice or a little bit of fresh fruit that's not frozen. You can use the dried fruit for the sweeteners, because we don't want you to sweeten with sugar and honey and maple syrup, and we don't want you to use artificial sweeteners. I want you to use fresh fruit, because fresh fruit and dried fruit for the sweetener has all those fibers intact. Better, it's healthier for you. And you don't want to make it so super sweet either. So you just add a little bit of dried apricots, or a little bit of prune, or a little bit of figs, or a little bit of dates, or a little bit of dried mango, a little bit of raisins, just a little bit of dried fruit to give it that extra bit of sweetness like a dessert. And then you throw in then pick some frozen fruit, like berries, like mango, like frozen banana, like frozen cherries, like frozen peaches. Going to mix it in. The frozen peach is a little bit of dried apricots that have been soaked overnight in water or soaked in soy milk. Really makes it taste great. When you use a hemp milk or a soy milk to soak the dried fruit overnight or for a few hours, it gives it a creamier mouthfeel, like a real ice cream, as opposed to a sorbet. And then you might want to give it a little gourmet touch or gourmet twist, like a little lemon or lemon rind, a little bit of toasted almonds sprinkled on top, a little bit of coconut mixed in, shredded coconut, a little bit of vinegar mixed into the ice cream, gives it a great flavor. A little fig vinegar or balsamic or pomegranate vinegar on top is really fantastic. So let me go through a few of my favorite recipes. One is a simple chocolate hazelnut ice cream, but it's basically banana ice cream, right? That's made with frozen bananas with a little hemp or soy or almond milk whipped together, with some walnuts and hazelnuts and some cocoa powder, maybe a little date to sweeten, and maybe some tofu, a little firm tofu mixed in to help give it that creamy ice cream-like mouthfeel. You made a delicious chocolate nut ice cream. That's healthy for you. You can serve to your family and be happy that your kids are eating something healthy. Or my strawberry pineapple sorbet, which my kids love. I'll usually take those unsweetened, unfumigated, right, those natural sun-dried pineapples, and I'll take the sun-dried pineapple and I'll soak them in orange juice, either for a few hours or overnight. So they're soft and mushy. Then I'll take that orange juice pineapple mixture, dump it in the blender, and take my bag of frozen strawberries and whip it on top. Comes out fantastic. And sometimes I'll add a little lemon to it, give it a little squeeze of lemon to counter that sweet and sourness. And that little bit of lemon added to the ice cream really works great with the mango ice cream too. So I'll take a bag of frozen mango and whip it up with dried mango, a couple of slices of dried mango that's been soaked in the hemp milk or the soy milk. And then I'll put in some unsweetened shredded coconut, because the combination between the hemp milk and the shredded coconut gives it that real smooth and creamy flavor, just like real ice cream. You got to try it. You're going to love this. You're going to be shocked that these simple recipes taste better than ice cream. They're mostly fruit. They're healthy for you, and they actually taste better than ice cream. All right, now desserts, some extra desserts, things like apple surprise, means it's just apples that are lightly cooked. Of course, we take apples and cut it up, mix it with raisins and flax seeds or walnuts and cinnamon, and you have a whole dish, just lightly stewed apples. A lot of times we'll stew them in a crust, like a homemade apple pie. I'll make a lot of different ways we can make a crust. You can just crush pecans or crush almonds and make a crust, mixing that with a little chia seeds. You blend up the chia seeds in a little nut grinder, coffee grinder, or a high-powered blender, and the chia seeds make the nuts stick together to form a thick, crusty-like feel. So you can make the crust out of oats. You could take a baby cereal, like the Familia unsweetened baby cereal, and you can blend it up in your blender and make a crust out of that. You can mix that with little chia seeds, makes it stick together. You can mix it with coconut, There's all different ways you make a healthy crust. And you can cook these things in the oven for 10 minutes just to make it a little warm. You could serve it with a little bit of ice cream right on top, a little bit of frozen bananas whipped with vanilla right on top, and make it almost like a treat for your kids after dinner. So puddings, pies, cakes can be made healthful. And we make a lot of puddings and pies and cakes with shredded beets, shredded carrots, shredded zucchini, mixed with a little whole grain. Sometimes we push the beets and the carrots and the zucchini together with no whole grain. One recipe that I like to make is my creamy custard carrot cake, which is made with just zucchinis and beets and carrots mixed with dried apple. And we'll soak a little bit of the dried apple in advance in a little bit of wine or a little bit of a Muscat dessert wine to give it a very gourmet flavor. Press it together, not cooked at all, just vegetables in a pie. Then I'll make a nice icing on top made with macadamia nuts with the hemp milk and a date and some vanilla. It's delicious. Or we make pudding with lentils or beans. Make a chocolate pudding or a chocolate breakfast bar made by mixing cocoa powder and fruit and lentils or beans together with little nuts. You can make all types of innovative creations. Now, here's some recipes with a chocolate pudding or a blueberry pie. The blueberry pie made with coconut and blueberries with avocado mixed with the blueberries as the creamy filling of the pie with one of those crusts we're talking about that was made with Familia the baby cereal. Or a chocolate pudding made with lentils and kale and butternut squash and beets and broccoli and zucchini, but now we added some raisins and dates and cocoa powder to sweeten it and some vanilla extract and soy milk. So we mixed together spinach and kale and broccoli and put it together, all these vegetables with a little cocoa powder, with a little natural fruit in there. Made a delicious chocolate pudding that's healthy for you. We make a great chocolate cake made with beets and zucchini in it with a little bit of whole wheat flour. And it's not that sweet. We use a chocolate icing made with cashews and macadamia nuts, like the icing for the carrot cake, but we put the cocoa powder and the date in the icing. And the pie and the cake doesn't taste that sweet. It's almost like eating a mildly sweetened vegetable dish. It tastes great and you're eating a dessert, but it's really a combination between a vegetable dish and a dessert with that little chocolatey flavor. It tastes fantastic. So look, you can take healthy food and you can make it taste gourmet, and you can make it so you could serve a dinner party of people of eating healthy food, and we can make this so your kids will love eating this way. Let's develop a weekly plan, and once you organize your meals into 3 meals a day, it becomes really easy because some of the meals can be very simple. Some of the meals could be a smoothie, could be soup you had made, could be a salad with just one of the dressings on top. Maybe breakfast is something light. Maybe you're just eating a peeled orange and going off to the gym to exercise. A lot of people only need 2 meals a day. Don't forget, you're only supposed to be eating when you're really hungry. There's nothing that says you have to eat 3 meals, 4 meals, or 2 meals, right? If you're a world-class athlete and you're exercising 4 or 5 hours a day, you may need 4 meals or 5 meals a day. If you're I vary the amount of meals I eat each day. Most days I eat 3 meals a day because most days I exercise. But if I don't exercise for a few days, I might find myself not being hungry for 3 meals. I may only want 2 meals because I didn't have time to exercise. I'm not hungry. So one of the most important things I want you to remember is plan in advance. Have foods ready in your house, ready to eat. Remember, when you're out of the house, at work or away from the house, that's when you're most tempted. So bring healthy food with you when you travel. Bring the healthy soups and salads to work with you, right? So when you menu plan, think about this. Breakfast could be mostly fruit or oats or maybe even vegetables with fruit or maybe a breakfast soup. Lunch, try to make lunch mostly a salad and a soup. Maybe a salad, a soup, and a piece of fruit. Sometimes I'll use the soup as the salad dressing. I'll take some shredded lettuce, put it in a bowl, and heat up my soup and dump it right on top of the lettuce. And the hot soup will kind of soften the lettuce and make the soup mildly crunchy and make it a very delicious meal. And then I'll have a piece of fruit for dessert. And dinner, when you cook your salad or your cooked vegetables, don't forget, try to add those mushrooms and onions and use some of those nutty dressings as a sauce. And maybe dinner's the one meal, we'll have a dessert afterwards, and that will mark the end of your eating for the day. So your basic menu structure is fruit for breakfast, salad and soup for lunch, some raw vegetables with a dip or salad for dinner, and some cooked vegetables. And if you're using animal products, we want to keep them to a minimum, only not more than a few ounces a day. So when you're no longer thinking of using animal products as a central part of the meal, you might add a little bit of animal products to flavor a salad, like a little a little bit of sliced scallops into a salad, or a little bit of shredded chicken into a soup or a vegetable bean stew you're making. We're no longer using animal products as a major source of calories. If you're still want to use animal products, using them as flavoring devices or condiments to add a little more flavor to a soup, or add a little more flavor or texture to a chili or to a stew. Using them in very small amounts. So your diet is relatively plant-based, whether you're on a vegetarian version or whether you're on the version that includes a little bit of animal products. Either way, your diet style is still mostly focused on these high-nutrient plant foods. So your weekly schedule may be shopping and cooking on the weekend and exercising on the weekend because you have time for that. And then on Mondays, you're eating leftovers. You may want to do some exercise. You may want to have some fun. Do something that's fun because you don't have to cook on Mondays. And then Tuesday and Thursdays may be an exercise A day and an exercise B day. Maybe on the exercise A day on Tuesday, you're doing all those pulling exercises, right? And you're walking uphill. And maybe on Thursday, you're doing different exercises, like pushing exercises. You know, for your thighs, you're doing different. Maybe on one day you did stomach and back, and the other day you did thighs and legs more. So you vary it around so you can fit your exercise in. And then Wednesdays maybe is a day off from exercise, because Wednesdays is where you're going to shop and do more cooking, and it's will last you the rest of the week. Do you follow how this works now? So you can do this without occupying your life, so you're always in the kitchen cooking all day, because we have busy lives, all right? So this is a diet style that can set you free. It can set you free from cleaning greasy pots and pans. But you're not burning and cooking and making smells and making it's very easy to clean, right? Just like rinse things off and put them away. It sets you free from medical conditions. And years ago, 30, 50, 60 years ago, people spent a lot more money on food. They would spend 4 times as much % of their personal income on food than they do today. But today we don't spend that much on food. But we spend 10 times more on health care costs. You know, just think of all the money you could save on health care if you spent more money on food. Now, I'm not saying this diet has to be expensive, because green vegetables and beans and grains like rices are very inexpensive. And you don't have to eat a lot of fresh tropical fruits. You can use frozen fruits, and so the diet doesn't have to be very expensive, and people eating this way find they don't have to eat as much food. They're satisfied with the volume of food and the high nutrients. They're not eating as much, so overall it doesn't cost them more money. But the bottom line here is that it's your body, and you only get one body in this life. You don't get a second one after you blow the first one. So put the best food you can into it, because that's the best way you're taking care of your health. And if you want to save money, let's think about cutting back medical care costs and not needing doctors and drugs and hospitals, because we put the right investment into our life, and it's the best investment you could make, is investment into your own health and your own happiness. And that can only be accomplished when you eat right. I'm wishing you incredible health and a happy and healthy life. Thanks so much.